Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Givanadari Gopi Jana Ballabha Givanadari Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Givanadari Gopi Jana Ballabha Givanadari Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Prasachada Satarne Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Om Agyanatharindasya Gyanagana Salakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopikanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Prananami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. First, I want to thank the mridanga player for playing so nicely. And I want to thank all of you for coming and being here today. I hope that I don't make too many mistakes that will just make the whole purpose of being here to hear the lecture mute. My name is Jadhavacharya Das. By Prabhupada's mercy, I'm a disciple since 1970, and I am at the point now that I want to be able to become more purified and eventually go back to United States and preach, because there's a great need, and this is what Prabhupada originally asked us to do. So I will try to keep everything within the limits, and we are in chapter 10. This is already there. And we're 14, 15, and 16, but we're only reading the Sanskrit. And you have to forgive me because my life has been centered around using electronics most of my last 20-some years, so I will use this, and we'll read the Sanskrit, and then the synonyms and translations, and I'll read the translations for 14 and 15. Anu pranananti yam pranatam sarva jantushu apanantam apananti naradevam iva nuga anuparanti yam prananantam sarva janatushu apanantam apananti nara devam ivanuga. Next. Anuprananti anamra pranatam sarvajantushu apanantam apananti naradevam avarangaha anuaparayantaya pranatam sarvajantushu apanantam apananti naradevam ivanaka abhangati vīryam prajna prananantam sarvajantushu apanantam apananti naradevam ivanaka. Vaishnavis? Anyone? Apuranti Vyamdana Pranantam Sarvajantushu Apanantam Prananti Naradevam Ivanugaha Anu Prananti. Follow the living symptoms. Yam, whom, prana, senses, pranatam, endeavoring, sarvajantushu, in all living entities, apanantam, stop endeavoring, apananti, all others, stop. Naradevam, a king. Eva, like. Anuga, the followers. I'll read the English translations for 14 and then 15. Translation. Just hear from me how the potency of this lordship divides one into three, called the controlling entities. The controlled entities and the material bodies in the manner mentioned above. 15. Translation. From the sky situated within the transcendental body of the manifesting Mahā-Viṣṇu, sense energy, mental force, and bodily strength are all generated, as well as the sum total of the fountainhead of the total living force. 16. Translation. As the followers of a king follow their Lord, similarly, when the total energy is in motion, all other living entities move, and when the total energy stops endeavoring, all other living entities stop sensual activities. These three activities, adhidaivam, adhibhūtam, adhyātmam. The senses, when we fall into this material world, unfortunately, Prabhupada explained that, I'm going to read this. This is from Gargamuni. He used to be Swami, he is Prabhu. And this is a question asked to Prabhupada. It says, have the conditioned souls ever seen Krishna? Where were they with the Lord before being conditioned by the desire to lord it over material nature? And Prabhupada said, yes, the conditioned souls are part and parcel of the Lord. Are part and parcel of the Lord. And thus they were with Krishna before being conditioned. Just as the child must have seen his father because the father places the child in the womb of the mother. Similarly, each soul has seen Krishna, or the Supreme Father. But at the time the conditioned souls are resting in the condition called susupti, which is exactly deep sleep without dream, or anesthetized state. Therefore, they do not remember being with Krishna when they wake up in the material world and become engaged in material affairs. This dream state was actually more of an unconscious state that we're actually in. We're in a gradual waking state right now, because we, at some point, regardless of our false ego, at that point we decided that we wanted to wake up. Krishna gives us enough intelligence to understand and awaken, just like in a dream. Sometimes you get little glimpses of certain realities, and those realities wake you up, and you say, oh, I thought I was dreaming, but you're not dreaming now. You actually, in this state, are becoming awake. When we first started as young brahmacharis and brahmacharinis in Detroit, every day we would go on Sankirtan. And going on Sankirtan, going back and forth, we would read the Krishna book. We had this realization that actually it wasn't so much as that we were learning about Krishna, it's just that we were remembering Krishna. That's the secret. Now we are beginning to remember Krishna. Now we begin to remember to get up early and to chant and to be able to come to Mangal Arati, and we begin to remember to see the deities. We begin to remember that we're not this body. We're remembering a little bit at a time, but we're not moving at a very fast pace as we could, because when we first come into contact with this material world, we're given a thing that's called false ego. I remember there was a devotee one time, he kept asking me, he says, well, Jadhavacharya, how's everything going with your mind? And your mind, is it getting better? And I tell him, I say, it's not so much as my mind that I'm having a problem with, it's this false ego. Because it's the false ego that once we get past the false ego, it's clear to just go back immediately. We can get out of the material world even now. We could do this, as Prabhupada says, we could do this in a second. All it takes is getting over this false ego. And the problem that we're dealing with right now is, first we have to overcome these senses. Because the senses, by being in this dream state, we're becoming attached unnecessarily from the senses through our mind. And once it gets into the mind, then it becomes insane. The mind is actually, from at least my experience, my mind is insane. I can't control it. Just like Arjuna said, to control the mind is like trying to control the wind. It's literally almost impossible. And that is why we have been given this very special process to be able to actually learn to control the mind, to control the senses. And remember, as Prabhupada, he said one time, he told the devotees, he says, I guarantee you're not this body. All of you Vaishnavis, you're not this body. All of you Vaishnavas, you are not this body. And when I go back to my room, I'll look in the mirror and I'll tell myself, Jadhavacharya, you are not this body. I know I'm not this body. At least I have that much appreciation of what Prabhupada has taught us, because I know I can see my body is changed, but I can also begin to see my soul. I'm seeing the real me. You see, when Krishna, as this is explained in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 7th verse, there's a very nice instruction that we are given that makes us understand that all of what we see is an illusion. It is still in a dream state, and that's very difficult to appreciate, because this dream state is, for us, is real. It feels real, it tastes real, it smells real, it looks real. Technically it is real. But we also have to remember that it is really only, it's all Krishna through Mahā-Viṣṇu, who has expanded into each and every atom. And that's where the complexity continues. Because along with that complexity, he is also assigned one of his most dear servants, Maya Devi, to make it very difficult for us to get out of this illusion. And I know, because I've been with her for a long time. She is my best friend, right? Yes. She must be. I know I don't want to leave her. Even in this state, I'm still thinking, maybe if I could just tweak it, if I could just get life, maybe I could go back and try it one more time and I could just get it right. Then everything would be perfect and I'll be happy. She's such a sweetheart. She's such a dear, because she does this without expecting anything in return except for Krishna's service. That's the nice part. There's another part of this that I'm going to read also. In the 7th chapter, the Bhagavad Gita, this is why it's so nice. Remember, I said we were going back and forth reading Krishna book. But in the Bhagavad, we would have Srimad Bhagavatam class in the morning. We would read Krishna book going to and from Sankirtan. And then in the evenings, we would have Bhagavad Gita class. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 7, it says, Mata pranataram nanyat kinchid asi chanajaya maya sarvam idam protam Surimani Gana Iva. It's all so nice. You brahmacharis know these verses. I swear, this is so nice. You ladies also, you probably know them. It says, O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. And I found this in the internet. And the nice part is that it gives all 4 paramparas, Kumara Sampradaya, the Sri Sampradaya, Lakshmi Sampradaya, and Rudra Sampradaya. All of the acharyas, they all basically say the same thing. And this is the purport by Srila Prabhupada. There is a common controversy over whether the supreme absolute truth is personal or impersonal. As far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the absolute truth is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and this is confirmed in every step. In this verse, in particular, it is stressed that the absolute truth is a person, that the personality of Godhead is the supreme absolute truth is also the affirmation of the Brahma Samhita, Isvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadi Adi Govinda Sarvakarna Karnam. That is the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead, is Lord Krishna, who is the primeval Lord, the reservoir of all pleasure, Govinda, and the eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. These authorities leave no doubt that the Absolute Truth is the Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. And this is what I want to share with you, because it really is easier for me now to say certain things certain ways, as opposed to just simply repeating what I've read. Now I'm starting to understand some realizations. Prabhupada said, he explained this, what's the sense in being in this Krishna consciousness if you do not focus on realizing the self? What is the self? The self, my realization is that, again, when I look in the mirror, I remember some years ago, I started recognizing that this personality is actually a form, or personality is like a little piece of Krishna. And I said, this is real. This is now, I'm saying, this is me, but it's also Krishna in the sense where Krishna's part, the little, just imagine, of course we have to understand that even though Krishna can expand and manifest into unlimited numbers, trillions, billions, we can't even count the numbers, that he manifests out of himself into us. It's the sense of saying part and parcel. We are all part and parcel. The only problem is this part and this parcel right now is in a particular body being controlled by the three modes of material nature. And because we're under these three modes of material nature, and we are conditioned by our paradigms, which means our past conditioning from birth has limited our perceptions, and our understanding is because we are still envious of Krishna. I asked Prabhupada a question one time. We were in Mathura, life members had invited us to lunch. And I asked Prabhupada, I says, Prabhupada, if we are Satchidananda Vigraha, that means that we are eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss and form. And yet at the same time, we are still attached to this material world and to this material body. I said, does that mean that we are actually our own worst enemies? And he looked at me, he said, that is a good question. The reason he said that is a good question is because all the other questions I had asked before were dumb doo-doo brain questions. So I finally asked him a good question, and he went on to explain that yes, the simple part, understanding is that we are here in the first place because we are envious of Krishna. And because we are envious of Krishna, and we are part and parcel of Krishna, that part and that parcel, which is actually eternally good or pure, or part and parcel of Krishna, that part we are also envious of. And then he went on to explain further that not only are we envious in that way, but we are also envious of the spiritual master. And I didn't have the maturity to be able to extend my questions beyond that, because it was way beyond my understanding. Even just being with Srila Prabhupada and talking with Srila Prabhupada is, you just have to remember that we were out of our league. Right now, basically we're in our league. We're in the association of devotees who have probably more years or less years, but we all basically have the same interactions. We're performing sadhana in a certain step-by-step process. we chant certain amount of rounds, we engage in seeing the deities. So we're technically in a group, a spiritual group that we're focused on right now, and we're helping one another advance in our Krishna consciousness as much as we can, but we can only go so far, because two things have to happen. The speaker as well as the hearer has to be able to be pretty much on the same level. And at that time, I was not at any level at all to be able to actually hear and understand what Srila Prabhupada was saying. You know how it is when you're trying to be polite and you just say, uh-huh, yeah, uh-huh. That's exactly all there was, uh-huh, yeah. But he explained in more detail. He said that we are envious of the spiritual master. And I honestly never, it took me years to understand what he meant. The spiritual master is giving us the perfect knowledge to be able to get out of the material world. That the spiritual master is a manifestation of Krishna. Right? I didn't just make this up. It says that in scripture. Prabhupada has explained it. But we're not fully appreciating the fact that number of the reality is that Guru is one. Most of us all have different spiritual masters here, right? And yet when we sing the prayers glorifying the spiritual master, especially at the beginning in ISKCON, many of the young boys who pretended to be spiritual masters, they were not being glorified in all the three worlds. We knew that. We still know that to be. But why is the spiritual master glorified in all the three worlds? Because the spiritual master is actually Krishna. That's what we have to remember. And the spiritual master of that one particular individual, he is representing Krishna by repeating the exact words from his spiritual master. And because his spiritual master is repeating exactly what he heard through the disciplic succession all the way back to Lord Krishna, that is why Guru is one. And once you understand that, then you can have the same appreciation. So being that the Guru is also a manifestation of Krishna, when years later I realized what Prabhupada meant by the fact that we are envious of the spiritual master. I really wish that I could go back and have one of those hypnotic regressions so that I could be able to remember all the details. But as I'm thinking now, I realize what he meant is that, you rascal, you fool, here you are sitting, you're hearing, but yet at the same time you're not following all of the instructions. You don't do everything all the time. You don't always chant your rounds. You don't always follow the four regulative principles. You don't always engage in devotional service without hesitation to serve the Supreme Lord. All these little details are part of the envy, because when you're envious of someone, you don't do what they want you to do. That's the difference. And I started realizing as becoming involved in householder life that I acted like I didn't have time to chant all the time. I didn't have time to engage in all the service of all the time that I'm supposed to do certain things, you see. So therefore, we are envious of our true self, because again, there is only Krishna. Nothing else exists outside of Krishna. And it's complex, it's very complex. And right now, I'm 75 years old. I don't know how I'm going to be able to make it to the end, but I'm praying to Krishna that somehow or another I can be able to overcome this envy Because the envy is the reason that we're here, and the envy is the reason that we're stuck. We can't get out. This body and this false ego is so strong and is so much limited that we cannot focus beyond our immediate experiencing sense gratification. What we see, what we know, this is it. That's all that we know. And Prabhupada is giving us everything that is outside of this immediate sense gratification. And the more that we focus on his words, his instructions, again, everything that you do is going to help you to wake up. We're going to remember. We're remembering out of a bad dream. And part of this other, what I was also hearing, is that as we wake up gradually, we'll be able to begin to hear Krishna. We're going to be able to hear, because our hearing is the most important faculty that we have for understanding transcendental knowledge. It's always the first part. That's why Lord Chaitanya came and gave us the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, the Samkirtan, because especially in the West, when we first started as young devotees, and I remember myself, first time I saw devotees in Boston, I looked at them and I thought to myself, they're either crazy or they know something very special. Later I found out there was a little bit of both. So the secret is that once I heard, remember this, when Lord Chaitanya manifests in this material world to us, he manifests as the holy name. And when the devotees were chanting, even now, when devotees are chanting on the streets, that is what people are seeing. They are actually seeing a manifestation of Lord Chaitanya. They are seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead combined with his most beloved consort, Srimati Radharani, are actually standing in front of them. And they can't see, but they can hear. And because they can hear, that's the part that's just like Prabhupada uses the example that if there's a tiger coming and they're sleeping and somebody will holler, it's tiger, a tiger is coming, wake up, wake up. And that's exactly what this whole thing is doing. Jeev Jago, Gaur Chandra. Gaur Chandra is telling us, wake up. Because if we don't wake up, we'll never come back to our original state. We'll stay in this dream. And because Krishna is so kind, as explained also in this verse, that in the sky, that is actually in the Mahā-Viṣṇu, stays in the sky, that is in the spiritual world, but that sky, Mahā-Viṣṇu, is in the water, and there is also a spiritual sky. All of that is happening directly in front of, during his developing or creating the material manifestations. All of that, and when he begins the creation and the destruction process by breathing, he is breathing out all of the universes, and in each universe you have the Garbhodakṣaya Viṣṇu, Kshirodakṣaya Viṣṇu, and then Paramatma is involved. All of these are actually existing for 311 trillion 40 billion years. That's a long time. 311 trillion 40 billion years. And he is taking a breath, each breath, each breath. And at the same time, the yogis say they do not know how many breaths he has taken. So just imagine how many lifetimes do we want to stay asleep in this, what is it, susti, sort of like I call it the soup. This is actually when there's no manifestation and no cognizant consciousness is going on. Everything becomes unmanifest. and this Mahatattva just becomes like nothing. It's there, it's energy, but it's not really form, and there's no manifestation, and we're all still asleep, just like now. I'm looking. There's probably, what, 1, 2, 3, about 5 or 6 people who are already still asleep. They don't want to wake up. They're enjoying the sleep process. I'm not going to even raise my voice because I figure maybe that's what they want. And see, Krishna is thinking in the same way. He's looking at us, he's saying, I guess Jadhavacharya, he probably doesn't really want to wake up. It's okay. He can sleep. Because see, for him, it's one breath. And just imagine, even during this time that we've been together, how many breaths have we taken? How many breaths? A couple hundred? Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. That's going on constantly with Mahā-Viṣṇu. He is breathing in, breathing out, 311 trillion, 40 billion years, breathing out, breathing in. Then we go back into an anesthetized state. Anyone who's ever been had anesthesia for operation and they become unconscious, they don't do anything, they don't think anything, they don't dream, nothing. It's just, I had this one time as a colonoscopy. You do this because they want to check to make sure there's no cancer inside. I figured, well, that's okay, I'll do that. But I remember they gave it to me and they were talking to me. I think they were kind of sadistic. They were talking to me, they knew I was going to pass out immediately, and then I was going to wake up as if like nothing ever happened. And that's exactly the state that we're in right now. If we don't become awake in this 311 trillion, 40 billion years episode of Mahā-Viṣṇu, giving us this ability to be able to remember who we are and what we are and our relationship with Him, then we'll go back into an anesthetized state of sleep. 311 trillion, 40 billion years again. And then we'll wake up, or at least what we call wake up, just like right now, we are woke. We're woke because we've woken up our consciousness. And every time that we're chanting, that's why if you understand what the purpose of the chanting is, Prabhupada says this helps to be able to cleanse the heart, to be able to cleanse the mind, because we have been here since time immemorial. To us, it's completely a long period of time. And I always thought time immemorial, that's, let's see, 1,000 years or 2,000, no. Time immemorial, 311 trillion, 40 billion years. How many breaths have I gone back into Mahā-Viṣṇu, anesthetized, sleep, and then wake back up? Then, because I get involved with this false ego, and then become involved with the 3 modes of material nature, I become convinced that I'm able to enjoy, because the propensity of the living entity is non-different from Krishna, and Krishna's propensity is to enjoy. Therefore, we are also attempting to enjoy, because we still, through the false ego, have not overcome our envy, enviousness. The envy that brought us here in the first place. And like this Prabhu said, and Prabhupada answered the question, that we have always had this envy. The more that we envy, the less opportunity for us to be able to get out. That's why some people hear Sankirtan, devotees chanting, they become angry, they become upset. They put their hands over their ears and they run away, or they look at us like, oh, why are you doing this? Well, it's because you're asleep and you're crazy and you don't realize that you're going to have to go through another birth and you're suffering and you're going to go back into the cycle and go up. Prabhupada said, this scared me when I heard this. He says, you go back and you start all over again. 8,400,000 different species. damn, man, it's hard enough just to be able to get through this one lifetime. Can you imagine going back over, starting out as an amoeba, and then having to work your way back up again just to get to the human form, and then to screw it up in the human form, and then have to go back and do the whole thing? That is why Prabhupada said Maya is very cruel. Very cruel. She doesn't care. She has no sympathy, because she knows that we are not this body. And she knows that we are spirit soul. And she also knows that our time element of birth, death, disease, and old age is all part of the greater illusion. And until we, at this point, decide that we want to wake up, then we can continue to go through this cycle, 311 trillion, 40 billion years. Just imagine, 311 trillion. Okay, so we have 8,400,000 species that we have to go through. And let's say in the insect world, each one of the insects, sometimes when I was driving down the road, I guess maybe I'm developing a little bit of compassion, because I would see the bugs hitting the windshield. And I'm thinking, especially early in the springtime or early in the summer, I'm thinking, poor thing, he didn't even get a chance to enjoy life. Immediately, it just, as soon as it got wings, flying all over, and poof, there you go. That was it. That was all you get. Now, how many of those lifetimes do we have to live through again, to go through? See, all this is such an illusion. It's such a complex process that we are forced to live through each and every lifetime. Hopefully, as Prabhupada said, that by just chanting Hare Krishna in this life, we'll get a chance to be human form again next life. We won't have to go back into the animal or into lower species. So the opportunity for getting out of the material world is at your beck and call. You've been given all of the tools to be able to become fully awake in this lifetime. And it's up to you. Nobody can do it for you. That's the scary part, because I know personally, I've always been very dependent on other people to do things for me, because I was raised in the West, and I know it's the same everywhere, that we expect other people to help us along. Even if we can, okay, maybe I can do it by myself, but I still like to have a little help, okay? This is what we're experiencing now. The nice part is, excuse me. The nice part is we're getting the right help from the right source. From Prabhupada, we're getting the right source of knowledge. We're getting the right information. So the only one who's going to screw this up is us, individually. There's no reason this time to not get it right. We don't have to guess. We don't have to figure it out. We don't have to try to second guess whether we're getting the right information or not, because we have the three sources, the Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. And if they're telling us exactly the same thing, then this is a guarantee. And Krishna says throughout Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, is always saying, of this there is no doubt. This I guarantee. This is a guarantee. You have a guarantee to get out of the material world and never have to take another birth again. That is up to you. But because of our desires to enjoy material life, we're hesitating. Now, why are we hesitating? You should ask yourself that question. I had to ask myself that question several times, all the time. I still ask that question. Why are you hesitating? Well, I'm actually trying to make a little effort to come. That's why I gave up my house, my wife, my family, everything to come to be able to become purified, so I could, at the time of death, remember to chant Hare Krishna. Basically, that's all that you have to do, as simple as that is. Why? Because once you understand who you are, when you realize, you look in the mirror, experiment. This is what it took me a while to understand. Look in the mirror and talk to Krishna. Say, hey, I know you're in there. You've been talking to me all this time. I think I'm ready to listen now. I really am. I can see who you are. I can see who you are because I can see myself. You see, myself is not different from the part that Krishna decided to pull out. He said, okay, this is going to be Jadhavacharya. This is exactly that character of myself. Krishna said, this is myself. I'm giving you that part of me and that characteristic. All of you have that. All of you are part and parcel of Krishna. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you realize? Go look in the mirror and talk to yourself. That's Krishna talking back to you. He'll give you the right information. He's saying, yes, you're on track. I understand. And you act in a certain way. You pretend to be a certain way. You do certain things in a certain way. But that's Krishna's characteristic that is part as what you are. That's the realization. You have to come to that. You have to accept. Just like Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was that part of Krishna specifically made to be able to portray that role as the nice sadhu from India coming and teaching us how to chant Hare Krishna. That was his characteristic. Krishna embedded him with that personality. We don't look like that in our true spiritual self because outside of the false ego, we still have the real ego, and that real ego is that Satchidananda Vigraha, that Sat, or that Chit aspect, the knowledge aspect. That is who you really are. That is what you really are. It's unique. There's only one of you. Krishna manifested unlimited living entities, and you are that one part of him that he manifests specifically just so that he can enjoy a relationship with you. It's dynamic. So experiment, because you only have a couple more days, months, or years to go. I know I don't. My time is coming to an end. I have 75 years. Maybe I'll make it for another couple days, a couple weeks, a couple years, but it won't last long. My body's going to give up. Then I have to go somewhere and do something. That's the secret. So right now we have a few more minutes left. I just wanted to ask, is there any questions or comments? I'm going to go with you, Prabhu, in the back. Yes. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
The first question is, what does your name mean?
Oh, Jadhavacharya Das. Jadhavacharya. That means the teacher of the Yadu dynasty.
Okay.
And I know why it took me a long time to understand, because see, my Karmi name is Mark. My first name is Mark, and usually Prabhupada named devotees with the first name. Some would be related to that. But I couldn't understand, why would he call me Jadhavacharya? And why would he call me a teacher? And later I come to understand that I am a teacher. That's my character. Remember I said, this is Krishna's character. This is what you see as part of Krishna's character. I could be butt naked running around in the jungle and I'd still be a teacher. As soon as I learn something, I want to be able to teach someone. So does that answer your question?
Yes, and then the comment that I had was, you said that you wanted to stay here and get purified and go to the West, and that was very profound, because even though I'm first and second initiated, you know, I've made some mistakes, and I'm from Los Angeles, and I made some mistakes, so I come to India. But what I'm trying to say is that it's good that you want to that you have that desire to go to America to preach, but most importantly, I have to follow the four regular principles wherever I go. That's number one. And number two, I can preach wherever I want. But the comment was, I liked what you had to say, that you want to get purified and go to the West to preach because it's needed, which is good, because a lot of people, they just want to come to in Vrindavan or Mayapur and stay there, and they just want to stay there. But that's not what Prabhupada taught us. Prabhupada taught us, go and preach. And that's what we should be doing. You know, so that's, I like that comment. It was really nice.
Then I expect to see you back, because we
Hare
need
Krishna.
you. We need you real bad, Prabhu. That's the whole point. This is, go ahead. All right, who's next? Comment? Huh? Prabhu?
Why did we leave the heavenly planets in the first place?
Why? I'm sorry, what was the question?
Why did we leave the spiritual world in the first place?
That's a very good question. The reason is that, being that we are part and parcel of Krishna, we have 78%. We have a lot of the same qualities as Krishna. And one of Krishna's most profound qualities is that he is independent. And he likes to do things the way that he wants to do them. And because we are part of Krishna, we have the same quality. We wanted to do things the way that we wanted to do them. And because we wanted to do them and thinking that I'm capable, you have to understand, at that point we thought, well, I'm almost as good as Krishna. He's enjoying. Why should he enjoy and me not enjoy? So I'm going to try this material world out, and I'm going to enjoy. Just watch. I don't need you, Krishna. You just stay here with your little Radharani, run around to all the gopis and having a good... You stay, I'm going to go enjoy. See this world over here, the material world? I'm going to enjoy the material world because I can enjoy too. I'm strong, I'm intelligent, I'm capable, I can be here and I can do without you, Krishna. I don't need you anymore. I'm ready, I'm out of here. That's why, because Krishna gave us freedom of choice. You have a choice. And when Krishna gave us freedom of choice, we just made a mistake. That was the mistake that we made to come here. Okay? Other question? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, you said that very important point. It really touched me. Why does one hesitate then, Prabhu? Can you tell, why does one hesitate? Why am I hesitating?
Because you still are not convinced that you're not this body, and you are not who you look at in the mirror every day. You're seeing the body, you're not seeing the self. There's a number of reasons that we hesitate, but the main reason is that we have been conditioned for so long. That's the part where the chanting the holy name comes in at, to purify our consciousness. We have been contaminated by this Maya. It's sort of like, we're like drug addicts. We've been drugged by the goodness, passion, and ignorance. We've been in this drug state for so long. If you know about drug addicts, they can't suddenly just snap out of it. Very few. There's only one devotee I know who is actually able to, just stop completely, and then became a devotee. But we can't do that because we're still drugged by these three modes of material nature, and we still haven't overcome our false ego. That's the real reason, is your false ego. You have to understand, if you read in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it explains the degree of implications and complications and coverings. You're not just one covering. This is millions of layers. These layers are thick. They're almost impossible. It's sort of like a coconut. You got to go coconut out of the skin, then you got to go the coconut, then you got to go the stuff that's on the outside. You have layers and layers and layers of, I call it filth, material filth that is covering your consciousness. That is why you're just hesitating. But because you are rightly situated and you're taking shelter of the spiritual master, he is going to give you the instructions on how to be able to step out of this drug state and into your original consciousness. That's why. You'll make it. Don't worry. You will make it. Okay? Jai. Anyone else? No? Prabhuji? Yes?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Jai.
Prabhuji, you mentioned that if any living entity does not want to wake up, he wants to continue sleeping. So Krishna does not want to wake him up. He does not want to disturb him.
No, he does want them to wake up, but because they have freedom of independence, the one thing that Krishna cannot do, no, there's two things he cannot do. He can't make us love him, and he can't control Radharani. But dealing with us, he can't make us love him.
Yes, sir.
He wants us to wake up. But if we don't want to, there's nothing he can do. There's no illusion. There is no anything that he can do that would make us want to love him. So the secret is that he doesn't want you. He doesn't want to force you to love him. That's not real love. He wants you to wake up and then learn to love him 100%.
Yeah. So, Prabhu, and then when we try to wake up, so what happens is that we realize that we have to go a very long distance. We have to travel. So we are asked that have patience. So what is the role of patience when we are traversing this path of devotional service?
Again, it's all because we have been so conditioned for so long. We're struggling. It's sort of like, you know, when you have a bad dream. We're in a bad dream. We're in a really bad dream. This is a terrible dream. And somehow or another, I'll tell you a story. This will make it very clear. I was, several years ago, I was living in a place, it must have been some haunting, some ghost, some rakshasas. And in my dreams, they would come and they would be attacking me. They were demoniac. They looked just like Ravana's type of rakshasas. And the problem is that they were like vampires and werewolves, and they couldn't be killed. And sometimes I remember I would wake up, my wife, she would have to stop me, and I'd be going, Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 because I was trying to fight them off. And I realized I couldn't fight them off in my dreams because they couldn't even be killed. So then I said, dumb. I started listening every night, I still do every day, play Prabhupada chanting in the background. Now, in the background, Prabhupada is chanting, and you have to understand that your conscious state, your spirit, does not ever sleep. And it hears the chanting. So when the chanting is there, not only that, but the vibrations around me, in the room, in the house, become purified. So therefore, I do not have, no demons can enter into my atmosphere. And once I learned to remember to not allow those things to come into my atmosphere, I slept peacefully. This is exactly the same way right now. You have to learn to have the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra playing and chanting with you all the time, 24/7. And then this Maya, she'll still try to attack you. But see, Maya is also a servant of Krishna. And Krishna will say, Maya, you can't enter into his consciousness anymore like you used to. Just like now, she can't make you do stuff that you used to do because you still are having some protection. So you learn to protect yourself by this chanting. This is a form of protection. So we're being protected from this Maya. That's what happens. You gradually protect yourself. That's even like Prabhupada said, he used to pray every day not to fall down. So if that's the case with Prabhupada, then what to speak of us? We have to pray constantly. And that's how we will avoid any happenstance, any bad things that will happen. And still, there may be some bad things, but they'll be minimized. Okay? Anyone else, if you want to, since we're out over time, I'll be more than happy to talk and spend time with you. That's what I'm here for. Okay? All right. Jai. Thank you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
So